This is lesson 7-1, percent of a number. Some students are collecting money for a local pet shelter. The model shows that they have raised 60% of their $2,000 goal, or $1,200. Sketch the model and label using decimals instead of percents. Okay, so we'll do that first. As a decimal, 20%, we'll just write it over here as 0.2. 40% is 0.4, 60% is 0.6, 80% is 0.8, and 100% is 1. As fractions, 20% is 20 out of 100, which is 1/5. 40% is 40 out of 100, or 2/5. 60% is 60 out of 100, or 3/5. 80 out of 100 is 80%, or 4/5. And 100% again is 1. You could write it as 5/5 or whatever you want. So number 1 with decimals, number 2 with fractions. Use the models to write two multiplication sentences that are equivalent to 60% of 2,000. Well, if we go up here on our chart, 60% as a decimal is 0.6. So we could say 0.6 times 2,000 equals 1,200, and you can see that that's correct. Or we could go to our second model where we have a fraction. We could write 60% as the fraction 3/5. Take that times 2,000. Make that a fraction if you want. Also gives us 1,200. To find the percent of a number such as 60% of 2,000, you can use one of the following methods. Write the fraction or percent as a fraction, or write the percent as a decimal. And in each case, multiply. Find 5% of 300. To find 5% of 300, you can use either method. Here they've written 5% as 5 out of 100, which simplifies to 1/20. We multiply 1/20 times 300, and we get 15. 5% as a decimal is 5/100, or 0.05. Multiply that times 300, and again, get 15. We'll vary our methods here a little bit to give you some variety. We'll do 40% of 70. 40% of 70. We're going to write 40% as the fraction 4 out of 10, which simplifies to 2 out of 5. We're going to multiply that times 70, because we can simplify here. What we get here is 14, and 1 here, dividing them both by 5, so 2 times 14. 40% of 70 is 28. In example B, this is example A over here. Example B, 15% of 100. Now, I'm not sure if this is a trick question or not, but percent means hundreds, so 15% as a fraction would be 15/100, which would be 15. Now, we could show that as multiplication if you want. We could simplify this to 3/20. We could take that times 100. We could simplify here, dividing them both by 5, or by 20, I should say. And then 3 times 5 is 15. Example C, we're going to write that as a decimal, 55% of 160. To change a percent to a decimal, we move our decimal point 2 places to the left. We call it P to D. So we have 0.55 times 160 which gives us 88. Use percents greater than 100. 120% of 75 would be the fraction 120 over 100, which simplifies to 6 over 5. 6/5 times 75. They don't show the simplifying here, but you could simplify here and make this a 1, make this a 15. 6 times 15 is 90. 120% of 1.2 or equals 1.2. In this case, we're changing it to a decimal instead of a fraction. So 1.2 times 75 will also give us 90. Example D, 150% of 20. We're going to write 150% as a fraction. We're going to divide both of those by 50. It's fairly obvious that 50 is the greatest common factor. Gives us 3 over 2. So we take 3 over 2 times 20 over 1. We simplify here and here. 3 times 10 is 30. In example 2, we're going to write that one as a decimal, or example E, I should say. 160%. Again, P to D makes this 1.6. Do 2 places to the left, move the decimal point, times 35 gives us 56. The real-world example, analyzing graphs. Refer to the graph. If 275 students took the survey, how many can be expected to have 3 television sets in their home? Well, we look here. Here's 3, 23%. 23% of 275. They wrote 23% as a decimal. They multiplied. They got 63.25, which they've then rounded to 63. In our example, it says, suppose 455 students took the survey, so more students than in the example. How many can be expected to have more than 4 televisions? More than 4 televisions is 25%. So we want to find 25% of 455. Now, 25% we know is a fraction 1/4. Not really compatible with 455, so we're going to change 25% to a decimal, 0.25. We're going to multiply that times 455, and we get 113.75, which we're going to round to 114. So 114 students of our survey of 455 have 4 or more televisions. Okay, 8% of 50. We're going to write 8% as a fraction. 8 over 100. We're not even going to simplify it this time because we see that we can simplify this way more effectively. Divide both these by 50. Divide these. 100 by 50 is 2. Then we can divide this by 2. We can divide that by 2. And after all that, we get an answer 4. Example number 2. 95% of 40. We're going to write 95% as a decimal, 0.95. We're going to multiply that times 40, and we get 38. Example number 3. 42% of 263. 42% of 263. Looks like a fraction that might be difficult to simplify or more work than we care for, so we're going to change that to 0.42. Again, P to D times 263 gives us 110.75 0.46, but now when we go back to our instructions here, it says round to the nearest tenth if necessary. So 110.46 would be 110.5. That's for problem number 3. Number 4. 110% of 70. 110% of 70. Change 110% to a decimal, 1.1 times 70. Use the distributive property. We have 70 plus 7. Our answer is 77. Let's do one more on this page before we go to the next page, get a little more room. Number 5. 115% of 20 would be 1.15 times 20 gives us 23. Example number 6. 130% of 78. Let's change this to a fraction. We haven't done a fraction for a while. It gives us 13 over 10 times 78 over 1. Can't really simplify. So we multiply 13 times 78 and we get 1014. Divide that by 10, we get 101.4. Number 7. Mackenzie wants to buy a new backpack that costs $50. If the tax rate is 6.5%, how much tax will she pay when she buys the backpack? So we want 6.5% of 50. 6.5%. This is tricky. Kids struggle with that. It's still 2 places to the left, so it's 0.065 times 50, which gives us a tax on our $50 purchase of $3.25. At this point, you've completed the video, so you should quit the video, go back to my Moodle page, look for the Naiku link this time, and take the lesson quiz 7-1.